Listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal through Carl Jung's profound understanding of the human psyche could completely transform how you handle toxic relationships. If you've ever felt your reality being twisted, your energy drained, and your sanity questioned by someone who seems to feed off your confusion, you're not losing your mind. According to Carl Jung, you're encountering what he called the shadow projection of a deeply wounded psyche. And today, I'm going to share Jung's one sentence that will make any narcissist stop in their tracks and fear you forever. But here's the catch. Once you understand this psychological truth, there's no going back to being manipulated. Are you ready for that level of freedom? Before we continue, if you're new here, please subscribe to our channel if you find value in this video. It's a great way to support us and encourage us to create more quality content. Carl Jung says that narcissistic behavior is never truly about you. It's about their unconscious terror of facing their own shadow self. Jung believed that narcissists operate from what he termed inflated ego consciousness, a psychological defense mechanism that masks profound inner emptiness and shame. They target empathetic, self-reflective individuals because, according to Jung, these people represent everything the narcissist has rejected within themselves. Jung observed that narcissists unconsciously seek out their psychological opposites, those who possess the very qualities they've banished to their shadow: genuine empathy, authentic self-reflection, and emotional depth. Why? Because being around you forces them to confront what they've lost, and that terrifies them. So instead of facing this truth, they project their inner chaos onto you. But here's what Jung discovered that will shock you. The moment you understand this projection, you hold all the power. Keep watching, because I'm about to reveal how Jung's insight exposes their deepest fear. According to Carl Jung, narcissists are driven by what he called the persona obsession, an overwhelming need to maintain a false mask at all costs. Jung identified three core psychological drives that fuel narcissistic behavior. One is control, to avoid facing their shadow. Two is validation, to keep their inflated ego alive. And finally, confusion, to prevent others from seeing their true self. Jung says that control is their primary survival mechanism. They must control your perception, your emotions, and your reality, because your authentic self threatens to expose their false persona. When Jung studied personality disorders, he discovered that narcissists live in constant terror of being truly seen. That's why they manipulate your reality, not because they're strong, but because they're desperately afraid. Carl Jung explains that their need for validation isn't confidence. It's what he called ego inflation, compensating for unconscious deflation. They crave admiration not to feel good, but to avoid the psychological collapse that comes with facing their shadow. Every compliment is a temporary fix for a wound that never heals. But Jung's most disturbing discovery is their use of confusion as a weapon. Jung observed that narcissists deliberately create what he termed psychological fog. They blur the lines between reality and manipulation because a confused victim is a controllable victim. They want you questioning your own perceptions, because your clarity is their greatest threat. Stay with me, because Jung's solution to breaking free from this psychological prison will astound you. Carl Jung says the key to defeating narcissistic manipulation lies in what he called conscious withdrawal of projection. Simply put, you stop feeding their psychological hunger. Jung discovered that narcissists are emotional vampires who feed off what he termed unconscious participation, your emotional reactions, your desperate explanations, your need to be understood by them. According to Jung, when you argue with a narcissist, you're not having a rational discussion, you're feeding their shadow. Every tear, every defensive explanation, every moment of confusion tells them their psychological manipulation is working. Jung observed that this creates what he called unconscious participation mystique. You become psychologically entangled with their distorted reality. But Jung revealed something revolutionary. The moment you achieve what he called conscious detachment, their power begins to crumble. This isn't emotional numbness, it's what Jung described as individuated consciousness. You see their behavior clearly without being emotionally hijacked by it. Jung says that firm, conscious detachment means you stop participating in their psychological drama. You observe their manipulation tactics without absorbing them. You witness their projection without internalizing it. This drives narcissists to desperation because, according to Jung, they need your unconscious participation to maintain their inflated ego. Here's Jung's most powerful insight. Narcissists can't survive psychological independence. When you stop seeking their validation, stop explaining yourself, and stop trying to make them understand your truth, you become what Jung called psychologically unavailable for their manipulation. But wait, Jung discovered one sentence that accelerates this process instantly. Are you ready to hear it? According to Carl Jung, there is one phrase that completely disrupts what he called the narcissistic participation mystique. This sentence doesn't attack their ego, doesn't trigger their defenses, and doesn't give them ammunition to use against you. Instead, it does something Jung observed that narcissists cannot psychologically handle. It creates an impenetrable boundary they cannot manipulate. The sentence is, "I'm not available for this conversation." Jung says this phrase is psychologically devastating to narcissists because it denies them what they need most, your unconscious participation in their reality distortion. Carl Jung observed that narcissists depend on pulling you into what he called circular psychological entanglement, endless conversations that go nowhere but drain your energy and sanity. But according to Jung, when you say, "I'm not available for this conversation," you're doing something revolutionary. You're withdrawing your psychic energy from their manipulation. Jung called this conscious non-participation, and he discovered it's the narcissist's greatest fear. Why does this terrify them? Because Jung understood that narcissists need your emotional engagement to maintain their psychological inflation. Without your participation, they're forced to face what Jung called their shadow emptiness, the void they've been running from their entire lives. Jung observed that this sentence works because it cannot be argued with, manipulated, or twisted. It's not an attack on their ego, so they can't play victim. It's not an explanation, so they can't confuse or gaslight you. It's simply a boundary, and Jung discovered that healthy boundaries are kryptonite to narcissistic manipulation. But here's Jung's warning. They will escalate at first. Stay with me to learn why this reaction proves the sentence is working. Carl Jung predicted exactly what happens when you use this phrase consistently. He called it shadow projection intensification. When narcissists sense they're losing psychological control, they temporarily increase their manipulation tactics. They may accuse you of being cold, avoidant, or emotionally unavailable. Jung says this reaction is actually proof that your boundary is working. According to Jung, this escalation occurs because you've disrupted their psychological homeostasis, the balance of power they need to maintain their false self. When you refuse to participate in their drama, they experience what Jung termed ego deflation anxiety, the terror of facing their authentic, wounded self. But Jung discovered something remarkable. Consistency in maintaining this boundary leads to what he called psychological individuation. You reclaim your authentic power. Every time you calmly repeat, "I'm not available for this conversation," you reinforce your psychological independence. Jung observed that narcissists eventually realize they cannot penetrate this boundary. They may try new manipulation tactics, but according to Jung, your consistent refusal to engage breaks what he called their projection hook, their ability to psychologically entangle you in their distorted reality. Carl Jung says this sentence is more than words. It's a declaration of psychological sovereignty. You're announcing that your psychic energy is no longer available for their manipulation, their chaos, or their emotional vampirism. According to Jung, this terrifies narcissists because it forces them to confront their deepest fear, psychological abandonment. Not the loss of you specifically, but the loss of their ability to avoid facing their shadow through manipulating others. Jung's final insight will change everything you thought you knew about dealing with toxic people. Carl Jung says that when you consistently maintain this boundary, you achieve what he considered the highest form of psychological development, individuation in the face of manipulation. You become what Jung called psychologically whole, someone who cannot be fractured by another person's unconscious projections. According to Jung, this transformation doesn't just protect you from one narcissist, it makes you immune to narcissistic manipulation entirely. You develop what he termed conscious recognition, the ability to spot projection, manipulation, and psychological games before they can hook you. Jung observed that people who master this boundary become what narcissists fear most, psychologically unavailable targets. You're no longer someone they can drain, confuse, or control. You've reclaimed what Jung called your authentic psychological authority. But here's Jung's most profound insight. This sentence doesn't just change how narcissists see you, it changes how you see yourself. Every time you honor your own psychological boundaries, you strengthen what Jung called your conscious ego, your authentic sense of self that cannot be manipulated or diminished by others. Carl Jung says that true psychological freedom comes not from changing others, but from becoming unavailable for their unconscious projections. When you master the art of conscious non-participation, you don't just escape narcissistic manipulation, you transcend it entirely. According to Jung, this is how you reclaim your power, one boundary, one sentence, one moment of conscious choice at a time. The narcissist's greatest weapon becomes powerless against someone who simply refuses to participate in their psychological drama. Jung's wisdom reveals the ultimate truth. You don't need to outsmart, expose, or defeat a narcissist. You simply need to become psychologically unavailable for their manipulation. And that is what makes them fear you forever, not your anger, but your unshakable peace, not your arguments, but your conscious silence, not your reaction, but your absolute refusal to participate in their distorted reality. The moment you truly understand this, you've already won. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it.